Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White and White Sense, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday the 23rd of May 2025. For those of you with children and grandchildren, it's half term next week. I'm actually going to take a few days off and go to Spain and get some sun. So I'll be thinking of you all, hopefully also enjoying some good weather. We've been asked by British Wireless Society if people could fill out a survey for them. The British Blind Wireless Society are the people who offer audio equipment for blind and partially sighted people. The service has been expanded recently in order to include free Alexa devices. If you do need help with any audio devices, please don't hesitate to contact Karen at the office. The survey is online at www.blind.org.uk/survey. That's www.blind.org.uk/survey, or you can do it by telephone on 01622 427 643. That is 01622 427 643. The more that people input into surveys, the better the outcome. So hopefully you'll be able to complete this for them. There's a second survey also running, which is by Guide Dogs, who have launched a survey about the impact of the government's proposed welfare changes on people with sight loss. Guide Dogs would appreciate as many people as possible completing the survey. However, it can only be done online. There is no telephone alternative. The website address is a little more convoluted. I will read it out, noting that all letters are lowercase except where I point out it is a higher case. It is https://bit.ly/4KM T0DA. To repeat, Hotel Tango Tango Papa Sierra : / Bravo India Tango Lima Yankee / 4 Kilo Mike Tango 0DA. Of course, you can always ring the office and we will be able to give you this, or perhaps if you come to the coffee morning, we will be able to log you in and let you have a go at the survey. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Sight for White and White Sense.
Here is this week's charity news for the 23rd of May 2025.
There is no swimming on Monday at Medina due to the bank holiday. It will resume on Monday the 2nd of June at 1:15.
Yoga is on Tuesday at Millbrook House between 1:45 and 2:45. This group is now full, but if you wish to put your name down on the waiting list, please call the office.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
Now the warmer and hopefully sunnier weather is coming, our tandem bikes are now out and about. If you would like to book a session, please call the office and a slot can be booked with the pilots.
This weekend we will be providing refreshments at the Gurnard Open Studios, held at Gurnard Village Hall. We will be serving delicious homemade cakes between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday.
On Monday, we will also be at the Bembridge Street Fair. Lisa, our CEO, will be running the stall and holding a tombola plus a children's tombola. So if you are visiting, please pop along and say hello.
On Friday, our striders will be striding around the Shorwell and Buckham area. The stride will be around 6 miles long, followed by lunch at the nearby Crown Inn Shorwell. If you would like to join the group, please call the office for more details.
There has been a change to the advertised June Eye on social. In our newsletter it says we will be at Northcourt Manor on June the 11th. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, this has been cancelled, and now we will be meeting for a lunch on June the 18th. More details to follow shortly.
If you sometimes wish you had a friend to talk to, and feel isolated from the outside world, our telephone befrienders are on hand to call you for a friendly chat. The calls can be weekly, fortnightly or monthly and can be tailored around your needs. If you would like to receive a telephone call, please call the office and we will match you with a befriender.
Our monthly 100 Club has spare balls available. If anybody would like to buy a ball, it is £2 a month or £24 for the full year. The more balls in the draw, the higher the prize money each month. If you would like to take part in our monthly draw, please call the office. This is part of our fundraising activities. Dear Gliders, this is Amos, founder and CEO of Glidance. I want to thank each of you, our founding gliders, pioneers and early supporters, for being on this incredible journey with us over the past year. Today I'm writing with an important update on our progress and what's ahead. Our news. We now expect to be shipping in spring 2026. I know this is later than any of us had hoped, but I want to take a moment to speak plainly about why and how we'll keep you closely involved every step of the way.
On hardware, based on insights from a year of in-person demo days and alpha testing, we made the strategic decision to redesign the entire chassis, making Glide even more durable, resilient and ready for real-world use.
Although this redesign set us back a few months, it was a necessary and thoughtful decision, one we're excited about, knowing it will pay off in the long term by ensuring every Glide will confidently handle the toughest environments, withstand daily wear and tear, and remain sturdy, low maintenance and easy to repair.
Much like the rest of the world, we've encountered uncertainty around tariffs and global sourcing. Rather than rushing into production, we've made the deliberate decision to pause our ramp up into full-scale manufacturing. This gives us the opportunity to revisit suppliers and secure more resilient, sustainable partnerships, building a path that ensures consistent pricing, reliable delivery, and a long-term strategy to make Glide as affordable as possible. It was a difficult decision, but one we firmly believe is best for ensuring long-term success for Glidance, for Glide and for you, our glider community.
While final production is delayed, progress hasn't stopped. Far from it. Our new Alpha 2 hardware is nearing completion and in internal testing now. The software has matured significantly in the last 2 months, with early versions of freestyle navigation now enabling me personally to travel independently in places like grocery stores and airports. Participants at our UK demos this week will be the first to experience this updated software. We're actively tuning Glide's ability to detect walkable paths, handle open spaces, and recognise common targets like entrances and doors. Over the next few weeks, I'll be sharing more context and videos around my day-to-day experiences, as well as more technical updates from the engineering team on our progress to date.
Rather than wait for production-ready units, we're kicking off beta testing this August. This will start with a small group of pioneers in the US, focusing on familiar routes near home or work, with the goal of getting you to the point where you can confidently leave your existing mobility aid behind. As we expand beta access this fall, we'll keep sharing updates. and listen closely to your feedback to help us shape the final product. A detailed shipping and fulfilment plan will come later this summer as we finalise manufacturing timelines. I know it's a lot to ask for more patience, especially from a community that's waited so long for the day that technology will truly empower us to get around more easily. But we remain fully committed to delivering on that promise. Not just a novel device, but a new category of independent mobility. We will get there, and we'll do it together.
Hi, this is Steve reading a story from the Island Echo with the headline, Grade 2 listed Holy Trinity Church in Bembridge could receive upgrade. A nearly 200-year-old Isle of Wight church could get an upgrade and a more welcoming entrance, significantly improving accessibility, comfort and energy efficiency. The Reverend Stephen Daugherty has put forward plans to County Hall for alterations to the existing entrance porch, the installation of glazed double doors, an improved entrance porch floor, and heating and lighting at Bembridge's Holy Trinity Church. The application would preserve the character of the church by integrating modern materials in a respectful manner, Reverend Daugherty's agent, Stickland Wright, has said. The Grade 2 listed building within the Bembridge Conservation Area dates to around 1845-46, according to Historic England. A heritage and design statement from Stickland Wright says, the design preserves the character of the historic structure while significantly improving accessibility, comfort and energy efficiency. The carefully considered upgrades will provide a more welcoming and functional entrance without compromising the integrity of the existing structure. The proposed draft lobby and accessible ramp are intended as a clear public benefit which we believe will outweigh the less than substantial harm to the building and conservation area setting. County Hall's public consultation on proposal 25/00652/FUL closes on the 16th of June and a decision has been scheduled for July the 4th.
Hello, this is an article from the Island Echo, read by Sue. Vix Lothian pledges fresh energy and focus for Newport and Carisbrooke. The new chair of Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, Vix Lothian, has said it's an incredible honour to be elected at such an exciting time in local government. Taking over from Councillor Martin Oliver at NCC's annual meeting, Councillor Vix Lothian pointed to plans to make the council more visible in the community, with its large annual budget supporting a host of organisations. Councillor Lothian is also a teacher of history, classics and geology, and last summer stood as the Green Party's general election candidate in the Isle of Wight East, coming third with 6,313 votes. Before joining NCCC as the representative for Newport Central, where she lives with her family, Councillor Lothian was a parish councillor in the West Wight. She said it's an incredible honour to take over the reins at such an exciting time in local government and to represent the 25,500 residents of Newport and Carisbrooke in our town and across the island. Our new council is young, diverse and determined to take every opportunity to improve the lives of the residents of our county town and beyond. The vast majority of councillors are working age, some with young families and busy jobs in Newport. As a public body with a large annual budget which supports many organisations and puts on events, it is clear that we still are not that visible in the minds of the wider public. I hope that our community council can raise our profile by making the most of our existing assets, including our hub right in the heart of the town at 64 High Street.
Warren Farm bucks Isle of Wight trend with dairy comeback. From the Island Echo, read by Joyce. A family-run West Wight farm is bucking the island-wide trend of dairy decline by launching a new micro dairy, becoming one of just 5 remaining dairy farms on the Isle of Wight. Warren Farm, near Allen Bay, has returned to milk production this spring after nearly 25 years away from the dairy industry. The move marks a significant step against the backdrop of falling dairy numbers on the Isle of Wight over the past couple of decades. Husband and wife team James Osman and Becca Hesketh are behind the venture, bringing back dairy cows to the farm that has long focused on livestock grazing and habitat restoration. Their aim is to supply the local community with high welfare, sustainably produced milk. James has said, "There is a rich history of dairy farming at Warren Farm, with my father previously running a dairy here for over 35 years. He also ran a milk round, delivering milk to local customers. Unfortunately, the economic pressures of dairy farming, especially here on the island, has seen many farms move away from dairy production. So we are really excited to be able to be bucking the trend and bringing dairy cows back to Warren Farm to start producing milk again. We are really grateful for the support from our landlords, the National Trust, and also the Isle of Wight National Landscape, who have helped fund the project via the Farming in Protected Landscape scheme. The couple sourced a small herd of pedigree Jersey cows from a Brightstone farm that recently ceased milk production. Many of the cows' bloodlines can be traced back to Queen Victoria's Jersey herd. Warren Farm's approach is rooted in traditional dairy methods, updated with a focus on sustainability and welfare. Their new microdairy will milk fewer than 12 cows and run a cow and calf system, meaning calves remain with their mothers and cows are milked once daily. The milk is processed on site, where it is gently pasteurized and bottled in reusable glass bottles. It is unhomogenized, allowing the cream to rise naturally. Becca has explained, "At Warren Farm, we farm with organic and regenerative principles in mind. This means we use no artificial fertilizers or pesticides. As a core pillar of our farming approach, we really prioritize the welfare of our animals. Through running our dairy as a cow and calf system, we can keep our calves with their mothers to be reared as naturally as possible. Our co-milking system means that we only milk the cows once in the morning, with the calves drinking from their mothers for the rest of the day." Oliver Cooper, Senior Estate Manager at the National Trust Isle of Wight, has said, "We are delighted to support Warren Farm's inspiring return to dairy farming on the Isle of Wight. This project reflects the National Trust's commitment to sustainable land management that benefits nature, animals, and local communities. By adopting regenerative practices and prioritising animal welfare, James and Becca are not only preserving the island's rich agricultural heritage, but also helping to restore valuable habitats around the farm. Warren Farm milk is now available from the farm's own shop, as well as at Orchid Bros, Hazel Grove Farm Shop, Nunwell Farm Kitchen, and the Needles Park. The team is in discussions with other local outlets and has plans to launch new dairy projects in the coming year.
Hello, this is Steve reading a story from Isle of Wight Radio with the headline, "Fantastic news for those dependent on them. Council abandons pantry's funding cut." County Hall has made a U-turn on the decision cutting funding for Isle of Wight community pantries, described as fantastic news for those dependent on them. Household Support Fund 7, that's the HSF investment, worth £295,000, has been allocated for the support hubs in a revised decision by Cabinet Member Councillor Debbie Andre, following a call-in of a prior decision denounced as cruel and heartless. HSF 7 is a £742 million government funding package to support vulnerable households distributed through unitary and county councils. Councillor Jeff Brodie, with the support of 8 other councillors, called in Councillor Andre's previous April the 24th decision, a delivery plan allocating £1,994,369.25 in the Isle of Wight HSF. They asked why community pantries were facing a 46% funding cut, despite overall Whitehall funding only being reduced by 12%. The Council's revised Isle of Wight HSF delivery plan supports a range of initiatives including £530,000 in community grants, £400,000 in supermarket vouchers, and a utility, food and water scheme worth £350,000. Councillor Brodie described the updated decision as fantastic news for all those dependent on support from community pantries and larders. Monique Gallop, a coordinator for Cowes Community Pantry, welcomed the change of plan, adding that the cut would have taken people's dignity away. She said, "The cut would be huge. Between all the pantries, I'd say we have at least 300 people visit a week. Out of that 300, that's going to be at least a minimum of probably 900 people a week that survive from the food from the pantries. It would have had a dramatic effect." An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson said, "The Cabinet member has considered the recommendation proposed by the Corporate Scrutiny Committee and, as a result, the decision regarding the delivery plan has been amended to reflect a reallocation of funding to once again enhance the offer to the community pantries on a one-off basis."
Hello, this is an article from the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Sue. Bembridge and Yarmouth fire stations set for closure as a result of financial pressure. The number of Isle of Wight fire stations could be cut from 10 to 8. The news follows a public consultation of the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service Safety Plan for 2025 to 2030 launched this week. If agreed upon, the proposal would see stations at Bembridge and Yarmouth closed. Shutting the latter would create an annual saving of around £108,000, with the land subsequently sold and building leased out for additional funds. Firefighters currently stationed at Yarmouth would be moved to the fellow West Wight base station in Freshwater. Meanwhile, should the closure of Bembridge Fire Station be given the green light, it would result in a further annual saving of around £135,000. There has been no response from Bembridge since 2020. During this time, as part of the fire service's multi-million-pound investment into the Isle of Wight, Ryde Fire Station has increased staffing to become a whole-time station crewed 24/7. How you can have your say. The public consultation will run until the 29th of July 2025. Residents will also be able to engage with the fire service face-to-face regarding the proposals at 2 town hall events in Bembridge and Yarmouth. Dates, venues and times to follow.
Sale of land to film and television company finalised by County Hall, from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Joyce. It's lights, camera, action for a new film studio on the Isle of Wight after the council finalised the sale of land. The disposal of Kingston Marine Park, KMP, in Whippingham to Medina Studios Limited, MSL, is to allow a film and television studios to be built, creating jobs and a substantial regeneration benefit for the island. A decision to sell the site was first approved by the Isle of Wight Council in November 2022. But as a result of a strike by Hollywood writers and actors unions in spring 2023, which shut down the film industry globally for a year, MSL's plans were put on hold. The Council's latest decision report for the sales says the requirements of funders within the film industry changed, and in spring 2024, MSL approached the Council with a request to revise the agreed terms of the disposal to better meet these needs. The transaction now agreed is the conclusion of 7 months' work with MSL on final technical due diligence, agreeing the finer transaction details and working with lawyers on both sides to agree the final contract wording. This is not unusual in a large and complex transaction such as this. Final terms for the Kingston Marine Park sale are favourable to both the Council and MSL, the report adds. They are confidential under the Local Government Act of 1972 as information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information.
Good morning, this is Madeline.
And this is Tony.
And we're reading the second part of the Talking News. And these are some news items. Residents frustrated over road diversion. Councillor Carter said the meeting aimed to unify concerns into a formal letter to key parties involved, including the Isle of Wight Council, Island Roads and Captiva Homes. She added that Cowes Town Council was not consulted about the plans, saying that they were as much in the dark as everyone else. Councillor Carter warned of a serious risk of injury, while residents reported numerous car crashes, including on Rolls Hill and near misses, particularly at Vittlefields Cross. Questions were raised about the police enforcement of newly introduced speed limits and the strain on infrastructure, including bridges on Rolls Hill and Pallants Road. One resident asked why Southern Vector's buses were permitted to pass through the works, while school buses, during critical exam periods, were not. The issue of HGVs being denied access through the works also raised eyebrows, especially given assertions by Mayor Ellis that he had been informed the bridges in question can accommodate such vehicles. For some, the financial toll is already biting. Stag Inn landlord Matthew Westwood revealed business had dropped by 25% just 2 days into the diversion and 40% by day 3. He has since had to close the kitchen on Mondays and Tuesdays, saying it's just not worth it. Attempts to secure business rates relief have so far been rebuffed by the council, he said. Nearby shop owners shared similar concerns. Residents of Nicholson Street, Miller Close and Rook Street described the works as particularly disruptive, with their only route home being a lengthy loop, even though the start of the closure is just metres from their junction. They also criticised the blocking off of a nearby road with concrete bollards, believed to stop it from being used as a rat run, that residents say could have alleviated the issue. A key proposal floated was to reintroduce two-way traffic on Horsebridge Hill when work is not active, such as evenings and weekends. Residents agreed that a united front was essential, not only to address the current disruption, but to influence future projects, including possible Southern Waterworks scheduled for January 2026. The open letter will present questions and concerns. All parties involved will be given 7 days to respond before legal action is considered.
Anger over, quote, chaotic one-way diversion. Pub landlord and residents slam closure. Emotions ran high at a public meeting as residents gathered to voice their growing frustration over the roadworks on Horsebridge Hill and the controversial one-way diversion route. The meeting was held at the Stag Inn, where the landlord, Matthew Westwood, said the pub takings were down as much as 40%. The focus was the sweeping disruption caused by the infrastructure works set to last until July 4th. Residents and business owners say the diversion is causing chaos, posing safety risks and threatening livelihoods. The meeting was chaired by Cowes Town Councillor Alison Carter and attended by the new Mayor Stuart Ellis.
New town centre cafe with glass roof opens. This unique new town centre cafe has a large glass roof and serves up locally sourced food. The Glass Roof Cafe on the first floor of Reader's Interiors on South Street, Newport, provides food and drink in a tranquil setting. The new glass roof, installed in October 2024, has UV protection and the room has air conditioning, making it comfortable to sit in and enjoy the sun. The cafe shares the floor with the sofas on sale in the shop, which were moved to create new space. Sammy Reader, owner, said, "With the natural light, all the fabrics come to life. Everyone coming up is really enjoying it. You can just step away and switch off." The glass roof lends itself to different kinds of weather, Sammy said, with rainfall creating an atmosphere in the cafe as well as rays of sunshine. She said customers can use the cafe to meet others or as a break while they shop at the home furniture store. The cafe is run by Christian Hillier, who previously ran the cafe at Core Abbey. The Glass Roof Cafe serves a range of toasties, breakfasts, as well as a quiche of the day and a meze platter. Kristen also sources food from Woodford's in Bembridge. She said, "It's somewhere a bit different. All age ranges are coming up. We're giving people that savoury option and something a bit more continental. The cafe is dog-friendly and laptop-friendly and has 2 accessible tables downstairs." Now they're up and running, Sammy, Kristen and the team have plans in the pipeline for evening events and making the space available to clubs in the autumn. Sammy said, "Even though we have only been open 2 weeks, we have seen repeat customers. Everyone here wants to make it somewhere special. There's nothing quite like this in Newport."
Quote, danger drivers in one-way system face action. Dangerous drivers who have been ignoring the one-way system on Horsebridge Hill could face prosecution, it has been warned. In the first week of the roadworks, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary said it had 21 reports of motorists going against the closure. Police have warned that CCTV is in operation. Footage showing motorists breaking the rules will be sent to their Hampshire SNAP team to review and decide if a prosecution is required, they said. Hampshire SNAP is a police initiative aimed at dealing with traffic offences caught on camera. Highlanders have taken to social media to voice concerns. One person said, "This happened to me on Monday when 2 cars whizzed through and met me in the middle. I had to manoeuvre around them. Very dangerous.
Red arrows to thrill crowds over Ride. The world-famous Red Arrows will return to Ride this summer for the Isle of Wight Armed Forces Day 2025. While the county press reported the planned appearance of the RAF's elite aerobatic team in March, confirmation has now come directly from the event organisers, ending weeks of speculation. The iconic display team will perform a full aerobatic show over Ryde Seafront on Sunday, June the 29th, around 11:45 a.m. Their return follows the huge success of last year's appearance. Councillor Ian Dorr, the driving force behind the event, described the official confirmation as the result of months of tireless effort, negotiations and generous fundraising. Last year's display was nothing short of spectacular, and the response from the public made it clear. The Red Arrows were top of the wish list, he said. It was a tall order, but this team doesn't back down from a challenge. Thanks to the overwhelming support from the community, sponsors and supporters, I'm thrilled to say the Reds will be soaring over the Solent Sands once again. The Red Arrows display will be a centrepiece of a day that aims to honour veterans, reservists, cadets and serving members of the armed forces.
Committee Constitution approved. Plans to overhaul the Isle of Wight Council's governance model, described as a bright future for County Hall, were given the go-ahead on Wednesday. Full Council voted to approve a new committee system constitution, replacing the local authority's cabinet decision-making structure. The new constitution received near unanimous support, with the exception of Councillor Laura Piercy-Wilcox and Councillor Ian Stevens, who abstained. Councillors agreed to move to a committee system at an extraordinary full council meeting on May the 1st, 2024. A committee system will bring greater democracy, transparency and accountability. Councillor Andrew Garrett, the leader of the Liberal Democrat group, told the Chamber, "I think it is a bright future for this council. I very much look forward to it. However you feel about it, do take part. You will have much more say." The Conservatives' Councillor Claire Mostell urged members of future committees to read the papers and give intelligent and thoughtful answers.
Ex-chief executive forced to live in a car. A once successful businesswoman from the Isle of Wight has revealed how she went from earning a six-figure salary to living in her car after suffering a brain injury. Annie Ricketts had enjoyed her career as a chief executive until a severe brain injury in July 2000 changed her life catastrophically. A fall from a horse which left Annie unconscious caused the injury, but a lack of follow-up care left Annie unable to work, which led to her becoming homeless and forced to live in her car. Almost 25 years later, Annie now campaigns for others with brain injuries and will share her story with MPs in a bid to push for a right to rehab. This comes as a new report from the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Acquired Brain Injury and the UK Acquired Brain Injury Forum highlights the annual £43 billion cost of NHS care and benefits for those with brain injuries. The report argues for brain injuries to be treated with the same importance as major conditions like cancer and dementia. It also reminds a statutory right to rehab, led by clinical specialists in every UK region, to be funded by savings in acute care and social services. Annie said, "My hospital medical notes said the patient is elderly and deaf, but I was 36 at the time of my accident. It took 4 years to see a neuropsychologist. I was sent home from hospital to a house that the medical staff knew was empty with no support. I left hospital with a piece of paper that says, 'You have a severe brain injury.' That was the extent of the discharge plan. I tried to work as a cleaner, but because it would take me hours to do a basic task like fill a bucket, I got fired and ended up homeless." Annie's story highlights the crucial role of early intervention, integrated care pathways, and long-term support in reducing the socio-economic burden of brain injuries. The report identifies several systematic failures in Annie's case: misdiagnosis, lack of rehabilitation planning, inadequate safeguarding, and failures in benefit assessments. Annie said these failures not only ruined her life, but also underline the broader economic inefficiencies in how traumatic brain injuries are managed in the UK. Health Secretary Wes Streeting told Parliament, "Rehab is key, not just to good recovery, but prevention of future demand on the NHS."
Cancer awareness campaign is not a potty idea. Lo and behold, 5 decorative toilets popped up around the island this week to support a bowel cancer awareness campaign. The Lou Could Save You initiative aims to inform people about bowel cancer symptoms. The campaign also encourages those aged 50 to 74 to return their poo tests set out as part of a national screening programme. The campaign, led by One White Health, has several events planned to raise awareness about bowel cancer. Island GP Dr. David Isaac said, "We wanted to come up with something a bit different to get people talking and draw as much attention as possible. It was a fun way of hopefully starting to spread some serious health messages." 5 porcelain toilets were donated by Claygate and Woods Trade Supplies in Shanklin and decorated by artists Holly Maslin, Maddie Dobson, Josh Raphael, Gemma Mallinson and Nathan Holt. The toilets were displayed in Northwood Park, Cowes, Yarmouth Quay, Harvey Brown's, Arraton, Brading Viewpoint Car Park and Ventnor Park. To learn about the symptoms of bowel cancer and how to do a test, go to www.yourloo-could-save-you, or one word, .co.uk.
New Redjet ferry is set to be game-changing. Red Funnel's game-changing new Redjet could enter service from early next year. The boss of the ferry firm has said, promising it will be even more reliable than the current fleet. Fran Collins has also revealed designs for 3 new vehicle ferries have been fully scoped and are nearly ready to be taken to shipyards. At a live demonstration event in Cowes, guests and the media were given the chance to board a smaller prototype vessel of the new Redjet using the same technology. Operating the zero emissions, the Artemis EF 24-foot passenger ferry will run off electric foiling technology and is seen as the first step to decarbonising the maritime industry. Although the actual Artemis vessel will be 3 times wider and twice as long as the prototype, the sailing proved to be much quieter and a lot smoother than a usual red jet crossing. The reason for this is because, unlike the current vessels, the boat operates using a hydrofoil propulsion system, lifting it out of the water and allowing it to fly over waves, reducing drag and wake and improving comfortability. When asked whether the new technology would also improve reliability on the route, CEO Frank Collins said, "I know we've had issues with the vehicle ferry. Alongside that, we had problems with the Red Jet a year ago. But the Red Jets have been consistently operating at 99% reliability. With this technology, it's electric motor, so we expect it to be even more reliable." Despite travelling at speeds of up to 36 knots, the Artemis does not move through the water by displacing it, as pushing it aside, meaning the vessel does not have to slow down as far away from the harbours like the current Red Jets. Ms Collins said it means the service could return to providing a 30-minute service. Operating on a 288 kilowatt battery, the vessel will be charged overnight and then topped up through the day at ports. And although the current Red Jet vessels have capacity for around 256 passengers, most of the time they only operate to 148, Ms Collins said. Artemis will also take around 150. Despite setting sail from early next year, Ms Collins said the Artemis, crewed by 3, would not be replacing the other Red Jet straight away. We'll introduce this on gradual phases, prioritising the lifeline services, she said. This is a 3-year trial, so we bring the vessel down to do the crew training and start to introduce her to service. As for the company's ageing car ferry fleet, Ms Collins said designs will be taken to shipyards as soon as possible, once further investment is sought. Crew training for the new Red Jet is set to begin in December.
Fears resurface as cracks appear in road. Concerns have been raised after cracks were spotted on a busy and key road into Ventnor, a town already grappling with landslips and instability. The county press has been told that the lower part of Gill's Cliff Road has seen visible deterioration, with residents raising concerns with the condition of the road surface. However, despite these fears, Island Roads has stated the situation is under control. Nearby to the Graben, a geological fault line on Newport Road, which has shown significant cracking in recent years, the lower end of Gill's Cliff Road was previously closed for 6 months due to a heavy rockfall in February 2024, reopening in August. Island Roads, which manages the island highways, responded to ongoing concerns with reassurance. A spokesman said, "We have been aware of some cracking to the road surface in Gill's Cliff Road for some months. The cracking has not worsened in recent months. It is currently not causing us undue concern. We will continue to monitor the site and take whatever action is needed to maintain a safe network." Island Road says ongoing monitoring will continue.
Green is new chair of council. It is an incredible honour to be elected at such an exciting time in our local government, the new chair of Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council has said. Taking over from Councillor Martin Oliver at NCCC's annual meeting, Councillor Fix Lothian pointed to plans to make the council more visible in the community with its large annual budget, supporting a host of organisations. Councillor Lothian is also a teacher of history, classics and geology, and last summer stood as the Green Party's general election candidate in Isle of Wight East, coming third with 6,313 votes. Before joining NCCC as the representative for Newport Central, where she lives with her family, Councillor Lothian was a parish councillor in the West Wight. She said, "It's an incredible honour to take over the reins at such an exciting time in local government and to represent 25,500 residents. Our new council is young, diverse and determined to take every opportunity to improve the lives of the residents of our county town and beyond."
Large wildfire prompts emergency response. A large piece of marshland caught alight in Sandown last Friday. Fire crews were called to marshland at the back of Marsh Close off Culver Parade just before 1:30 in the afternoon. Fire stations attending included Sandown, Shanklin, Ventnor and Ryde. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service, alerted to a fire in the open, ended up dealing with an affected area of about 100 metres by 100 metres. Grasslands and reeds were destroyed by the fire. If you do see a fire in the countryside, get to safety and contact the fire service immediately. Dial 999. Don't attempt to tackle fires that can't be put out with a bucket of water. Give a map reference if possible. Otherwise, give a landmark such as a farm or pub to help to locate the fire. You can download the What 3 Words app on your phone to help pinpoint incidents. Estimate the size of area that's burning. Describe the type of terrain, grass, bracken, forest, open moorland, etc. Evacuate the area as soon as possible.
Fundraiser for Hero OAP after aviaries lost in fire. A fundraiser has been set up to help a Hero pensioner who nurses rescue birds to rebuild his aviaries after a fire ripped through them. The man, known only as Bob, saw his aviaries destroyed by a blaze at his home in Elm Grove Cows last Friday night. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue confirmed the cause of the fire was an electrical fault. Not only was there physical damage, but the loss was also emotionally devastating for the pensioner. The outbuildings and aviary were completely gutted as fire engulfed them. Fire crews from Newport, Cows and Ryde attended the scene to tackle the blaze. The aviaries housed many rescue birds. A GoFundMe page has been established to raise money to rebuild Bob's aviary. Donate at www.gofundme.com/f/help rebuild aviaries after horrific fire. The fire spread from one garden to two others, and as a result, a number of birds Bob had been caring for had perished. Nikki Williams, who established a GoFundMe page online, said, "Bob has poured his heart, soul and savings into building and caring for these aviaries. They weren't just structures, they were a sanctuary for countless birds, many of which were rescues. Bob has been a quiet hero on the Isle of Wight, always there to support Isle of Wight bird rescue, nursing injured birds back to health, giving them a home and dedicating himself entirely to their care. For Bob, Birds are not a hobby, but is life. To lose everything so suddenly has been truly heartbreaking. The fundraiser aims to raise £2,400 to help Bob begin the process of rebuilding what was lost. As of Thursday lunchtime, 2,300 had been raised. Every penny will go towards materials, shelter and care for birds. Bob has given so much to the birds and to our community. Now it's our turn to give something back, adds Nikki. Please donate if you can. Firefighters used 1 main jet and 3 hose reels to extinguish the fire.
Anger over state of Art Deco icon. Enforcement action by the Isle of Wight Council, possible legal steps and public pressure could be the key to help, quote, wrestle back Ventnor Winter Gardens from its owners, a heated public meeting concluded. More than 80 people attended the meeting about the state of the iconic venue at the Better Days Cafe in Ventnor last Friday. There was deep concern, dismay and anger over how the iconic Art Deco style landmark had fallen into serious disrepair. Isle of Wight East MP Joe Robertson shared the outcome of his Zoom meeting with Kevin Susmilch of the Hambra Group, who bought the building for £1 in 2013. He said the conversation was worryingly short on detail. Mr. Susmilch, who declined to attend the meeting, reportedly spent £1.5 million on the roof and had been offered £3 million to buy it by a local person but turned it down, Mr. Robertson said. The public was also invited to sign a nomination form to make the Winter Gardens an asset of community value. To trigger the process, at least 21 signatures were needed, comfortably surpassed. Another, Amber Irving, grew up at the Winter Gardens when her father, Matt, ran it for 10 years from the late 1990s. She said, "It's a place that's really dear to my heart. It was ripped from the heart of our community." Another member of the audience who grew up at the Winter Gardens was GP Dr. David McDonnell, who hit back at suggestions the venue never made a profit since its first year open in 1937. His parents, Brian and Jan, ran the venue in the 1970s and 80s, and David grew up seeing entertainment day in, day 14. Linda Sullivan made the point. The council sold the building for £1 under certain legal conditions which were never satisfied. If the council had enforced those conditions, we wouldn't be in the position we are in now. The meeting, arranged and introduced by Stephen Withyman, a concerned Ventnor resident, concluded with a consensus. The Hambra Group needs to be accountable for the building's state.
Now for some Wight memories and nostalgia. How royal gates were spared ignominy. Gates can make such an impression when arriving at a house, big or small. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, well aware of this, spread numerous gates and lodge keepers' cottages around their estate. All of them included the letter VA in the centre roundel. The Queen's Italianate-style entrance gates are still reserved for royalty, although an exception was made for the Olympic flame in 2012. Lesser mortals, such as ourselves, used the tradesman's entrance opposite the Prince of Wales public house. This did once have double gates, but sadly they were not quite wide enough for the numerous coaches that use the gates today. Preceding the Queen when she was out on her travels would be an outrider who would shout for the gatekeepers to open the gate. The gatekeeper was usually the wife of one of the estate workers. Having opened the gate, she would then rush back to put the children in clean smocks, ready to curtsy to the monarch as she passed. Barton Manor had 2 lodges, and the gates again were proved too small for the modern transport. Prince Albert drew the designs for those lodges, which reflect the Jacobean style of the manor house. 4 rooms and a storeroom were provided, with an inane external building, an earth toilet, wash house and copper for clothes washing, and a water pump. Each of these rural lodges would also have a pigsty and a productive garden. In Elverston Road, the lodge is dual-ended, as 2 estate roads were built. The Mount Road gate entrance proved too small for a waste collection vehicle a few years ago, so the estate owners clubbed together after the gate pier was rebuilt and had a new gate built too.
Similar wooden gates can be found at all the other nearby lodges. One has just been lovingly repaired on the Queen's Drive from Brox Road to the Ryde Road. The style of gate spread to the fields as well, and several metal gates with a central VA still exist. Often, metal railings are also still in place. When the Second World War commenced, metal recycling was necessary, it was thought. Salvage men were sent everywhere to gather up all the metal railings they could find. They arrived at Barton Manor and told the owner they wanted all the railings and the gates, even if they had VA on them. The owner suggested that, as there was a very large heavy engine in the threshing barn, they might like to have that instead. Nobody alive knew how to work it, so luckily all the VA gates were saved. So next time you are anywhere near Whippingham, look out for the VA gates.
Now we have some items of my view. And the first is from Joe Robertson, the MP for Isle of Wight East. Farming and fishing issues firmly in the spotlight. Last week I welcomed Victoria Atkins MP, Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs to the island to meet with local farmers to discuss pressures brought about by the family farm tax, and to meet with the Blake family in Ventnor to discuss the future of fishing pending the UK-EU reset negotiations. We were accompanied by the Daily Express, and the island featured prominently in Victoria's response to the outcome of the EU renegotiations announced this week. Unfortunately, the government missed the opportunity to improve the situation for the UK fishing industry. The next 12 years, we will continue to see French and Dutch super trawlers off the south of the island, scraping the seabed of fish and discarding dead bass, while the Blakes and other small UK fishing fleets will be told they can't catch bluefin tuna, and their bass quotas are dwarfed by the quantities the EU super trawlers are killing by accident. Last week I met with ferry operators to the Isles of Scilly. They operate a very different model to the Isle of Wight ferries, with no private equity investors and, until recently, no bank debt and no interest repayments at all. They have around 200 shareholders, some of them islanders themselves, none of whom own more than 6% of the company. They haven't taken dividends for over 6 years. All of this means they do not have the extortionate dynamic pricing model like Whitelink and Red Funnel, and the service is very reliable. I subsequently asked the Maritime Minister in the House of Commons whether he was prepared to defend the red funnel ownership model, which he declined to do, and reaffirmed his commitment to look at pricing, ticketing and reliability.
I continue to be of the clear view that private equity ownership, whereby red funnel profits are paying Canadian pension funds, for example, is the root cause of many of our ferry problems, particularly pricing. I have been concerned by the financial difficulties faced by John's Club, which operates in Ryde. It has been running for nearly 30 years, supporting people with learning difficulties, disabilities, mental ill health, and those who struggle to socialise and mix. If it folds, so many people with needs will face an uncertain future. That's why I met with John himself, together with John McLagan, chair of the new Ryde MP Business Forum, to see how we can help. Lisa from the Ryde Neighbourhood Board is also lending her financial expertise to help get John's Club on a sound financial footing and able to generate sustainable income into the future.
And a view from Joe Plum: island theatre closures are a leadership failure. There's a lot in the news right now about Ventnor Winter Gardens, and rightly so. The anger and dismay over the state of that iconic 1930s building is loud and growing. It mirrors the public outcry we've seen around Ryde Theatre in recent years. Beautiful, significant spaces in the heart of our communities falling into disrepair, with only the bare minimum being done to keep them standing. A couple of sticking plasters here and there, but no real effort to encourage or require their current owners to do anything meaningful with them. But not every theatre was lost to the same fate. Back in 2013, when the council was offloading its cultural assets in a short-sighted, cost-cutting drive, Shanklin Theatre was handed not to a private landlord, but to a community group. That decision changed everything. An awesome team of community champions stepped up, people who cared deeply about the space and wanted it to thrive. With a phenomenal team of volunteers and smart audience-focused programming, they've created a jam-packed schedule that fills the theatre's 615 seats most nights of the week. Back in 2010, the council saw these venues as financial drains, but it wasn't the buildings that were the problem, it was how they were being used. With better programming, more ambitious thinking, and broader access for community groups, these spaces could have been assets rather than burdens. Now, instead of lively theatres, we're left with empty eyesores the council can't do anything about. It was a colossal mistake, and one with a lesson we still need to learn. We're right to point the finger at neglectful landlords when our historic theatres crumble, but let's not forget who sold them off in the first place. The Isle of Wight Council's role in the long-term loss of venues like Ryde Theatre is a chapter worth rereading. And speaking of Ryde Theatre, remember that election banner with council leader Phil Jordan's face draped across the front, as if he was the man to save it. Well, he's had a bonus year in power. Is he going to use it finally to sort this problem out?
Ryde Town Council washed their hands of it. A trust was formed. Another group appeared, but that's just led to background squabbling between factions, while no one seems to be getting any closer to getting the keys. All the while, a grand building continues to crumble. A brilliant community-led report by the Friends of Ride Theatre laid out a clear, viable vision for the building's future. It was thoughtful, practical and inspiring, but about as likely to happen as me growing wings and flying up the clock tower. The other group delivered a presentation on a flashy London-style redevelopment complete with promises of a well-known photographer backing it. I'm sure most of us could come up with a dream wish list for these incredible spaces, but without the keys, they're just that, dreams. This isn't just nostalgia or sentimentality. Theatres, when alive and well, deliver massive economic and social benefits. Audiences spend money on food, drink, transport, babysitters, before and after a show. These spaces employ local people, offer training and creative opportunity, and give young talent a reason to stay on the island. The knock-on effect is real and measurable. But bringing them back isn't enough. Once open, these venues need to be programmed smartly. They should grow audiences, respond to local need, and play their part in the island's cultural ecosystem, from fringe theatre and touring bands to community shows and education work. Just look at Strings in Newport, a powerhouse for local and touring music, or the way we throw on flower crowns and wellies and pack out the Isle of Wight Festival. We've got the talent, the stories, the visitors, the community will. The demand is there. What's missing is space and leadership with the guts and vision to bring these venues back into public hands, invest in them properly and deliver a bold, ambitious programme. Because a place without theatres is a place without a proper stage to tell its stories. And right now, far too many curtains are closed.
And now moving on to some items of what's on. Sailing Club to host Open Day. Bembridge Sailing Club is set to host its Open Day on Monday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The free event will include sailing taster sessions, live music from Jukebox Jazz and a performance by local magician Luke Lamont. A barbecue, games and additional family-friendly activities are also planned. The event will support the Ellen MacArthur Cancer Trust, the club's charity of the year, which will be promoting its work during the day. The Sailing Club is located on Embankment Road, Bembridge, and all are welcome to attend.
Seafront Festival. A mini-festival is returning for the late May bank holiday. Ticket to Ride will be held at Eastern Gardens on Ryde Seafront on May the 24th and 25th. The festival promises a weekend of live music, local traders, food stalls, kids' activities and more. The event supports the MS Society Isle of Wight. The festival is free and features a variety of performers including Pistol Knights, the Signal Men, the Amy Jolliffe Band and Sarah Kelly. Island Ales will provide a real ale bar. The market stalls and food vendors will open at 10 in the morning, with on-stage events running from 11:30 in the morning to 8 o'clock on both days. Now, in its 11th year, the festival continues to unite residents and visitors through live music, local vendors and various activities.
Win tickets to Taylor Swift and Harry Styles tribute concert. Swift and Styles, the UK's top tribute show dedicated to the music of Taylor Swift and Harry Styles, is coming to the island, and to celebrate, the County Press and Jack Up Events are teaming up to give 2 lucky people a pair of tickets. Retro Staycation's glamping retreat in Ryde is being transformed into the ultimate live concert experience for the event on Saturday, June the 7th. Open to all ages, the fast-paced, high-energy tribute concert is designed to get everyone dancing to smash hits like Shake It Off, As It Was, Cruel Summer, Sign of the Times, I Knew You Were Trouble, Watermelon Sugar, and many, many more. To win a pair of tickets to Swift and Styles, the tribute concert, answer the following questions. Where is the event taking place? Email your answer and your contact details to competition@isleofwightcountypress.co.uk by midday on Thursday, May the 29th. 2 winners will be picked at random. Gates open at 5:30 p.m. and the concert starts at 8 p.m. with Island singer-songwriter Amelia warming up the crowd beforehand. Tickets are £21 and under 16s must be accompanied by an adult.
Wellness Day grows in size. A Wellbeing Day has more than tripled in size. The event, now in its 4th year, is set to take place on June the 15th in the garden and woodland area of Landgate Manor in Shanklin. The event will feature some of the island's top therapists and practitioners offering a variety of treatments, including massage, reflexology, Indian head massage, Reiki, and crystal healing. Prices for classes and treatments range from £8 to £50. There will also be free guided woodland meditation sessions, free skincare consultations with Elizabeth Milton Skincare Clinic, and free spinal checks with chiropractor Teresa Arnold. Organiser Cliff Dutton said, "Once again, we welcome all to join us at this fantastic free-to-attend event with so many amazing professionals offering treatments and advice for your well-being journey. What's not to like?"
And now we've got a few letters from people that have written to the county press. Too frightened to venture out, from Roger Neal, Islander now residing on the mainland. Currently visiting a resident on Palance Road for 3 days and finding ourselves trapped in the house due to the speed of continuous traffic passing. There is an urgent need for highways to witness the situation, and I would be very happy to be constructive and helpful in trying to resolve this. The most important aspect is the speed of traffic needing to be slowed to 10 miles an hour and police slow signage on the bends of the residential section of Palance Road. Probably other roads on the one-way system need the same attention. We are all frightened to venture out because we are predicting a fatal accident is about to occur. Please, Council, attend to this.
Sarah Brooks of Shanklin writes, "Policy needed on short school skirts." What is the policy on the length of school uniform skirts? I am both concerned and irritated that skirts are getting shorter and shorter with apparently no rules about what is acceptable. Now a grandmother to 3 girls, I was a child of the 60s, so I've worn minis, micro minis, hot pants, spray-on leather trousers and bloomers. Remember those? Back then there was still an element of modesty, and we also realised that not everybody could wear these and that pasty white legs were definitely not attractive. These days there is no modesty, and any hint of guidance is borderline body shaming. My concern is how these children, and they are children because adults don't generally dress that way, are bowing to peer pressure to gain approval and don't realise they are fueling the fantasies of people whose attention they would certainly not want. And don't give me this guff about empowerment and how women should be allowed to wear what they want without being sexually objectivised. I love tigers and polar bears. I would love to be able to walk with them, but they are predators and I am meat. We used to kneel on the floor and the teacher would get a ruler beside us, no touching required, to check our skirts were no more than 4 inches above the knee. Parents, teachers, please do something.
Our residents deserve better, from Jock Rafferty, Cowstown Council. As a Cowstown councillor, I've been inundated with complaints from residents and local business owners who are absolutely furious about the roadworks on Horsebridge Hill, and more pointedly, the disgraceful way in which the Isle of Wight Council has handled the situation. Let me be clear, no one I've spoken to is against the construction of much-needed social housing. They are angry about the complete lack of communication, consultation and consideration shown to the very communities these developments are supposed to serve. The chaos caused by the road closures and diversions has been immense, but the real insult has been the silence and confusion that accompanied it. Businesses have lost trade, commuters have lost hours in their day, parents are struggling with school runs. And all the while the council appears more concerned with deflecting blame than taking any meaningful responsibility. Council leader Phil Jordan's recent comments do nothing but reinforce this view, pointing the finger at developers, island roads and anyone else available, as if the council has no role in the very schemes it authorises. This sort of buck-passing is not just unacceptable, it's dangerous. It creates a culture where no one is accountable and the public are left in the lurch. The council's ongoing dispute with Island Roads may explain some of the dysfunction behind the scenes, but it certainly doesn't excuse the complete breakdown in public communication. People don't expect miracles, but they do expect honesty, transparency and leadership. Right now they're not getting any of the above. This is not the first time the Isle of Wight Council has mishandled a major issue, and unless there is a serious rethink in how projects like this are planned and communicated, it won't be the last. The island deserves better, our residents deserve better, and I, for one, will continue to speak up until the council starts treating them with the respect they are owed.
Robert Drover of Freshwater writes, "Review needed." After yet another couple of weeks of mayhem on our roads, might I suggest that a thorough review of traffic management is necessary. Since the 1940s, the number of vehicles on the UK road system has increased tenfold. Now there are some 40 million registered for use. They are also much faster and with acceleration rates that could not have been envisioned back then. In that time span, Isle of Wight roads have improved safety-wise only marginally and usually only after a fatality. For instance, traffic lights at Yarbridge only after a sad incident there. The national speed limit of 60 miles an hour is just plain ludicrous for almost all our roads. The recent RTIs on Long Lane, Newport and the Downs Road to Brading are surely cause enough to question this daft application of the national limit. Question: could you encourage anyone to walk or cycle this route? PS: I am glad to see that the Isle of Wight Council has a 40 mile an hour limit on Whitehouse Road during the diversion period. I would also like to see no overtaking signs.
And that's all we have for you today, so it's goodbye from Madeline.
And goodbye from Tony.
The BBC In Touch programme follows. There's no scaffolding news this week.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. Later, the long-promised catch-up on your responses to our major interviews with the CEOs of the RNIB and Guide Dogs. But first, as technology seems to be impinging on more and more aspects of our lives, it's surely becoming increasingly crucial that blind and partially sighted people get better access to websites, apps, phones, methods of dealing with money. The list is endless. So here's the good news. The European Accessibility Act, the EAA, is on its way. It kicks in next month. And the bad news? Well, it's EU legislation, so not strictly speaking directly applicable to the UK. But before you switch off, there's a silver lining to that cloud, which my guests will explain. Joining me are Leonie Watson, who's Director of Tetralogical, which is an accessibility consultancy and auditing company, and Antoine Phobe, he's Head of Advocacy and Campaigns with the European Blind Union. Let's start with you, Antoine. Just in a nutshell, explain what this legislation will do for visually impaired people in the EU.
Yes, the European Accessibility Act, it obliges companies to make a range of products and services accessible for persons with disabilities in general. It concentrates on a wide range of products and services. These are, I'll mention a few, computer general purpose computer hardware systems and operating systems, for instance, Windows or Mac OS, payment terminals, self-service terminals, including, for instance, ticketing machines and ATMs, consumer terminal equipment, for instance, smartphones, tablets, e-readers, for instance, Amazon Kindle, some services too, for instance, electronic communication services or services providing access to audiovisual media services.
We'll come back to some of those. How effective do you think it's going to be in EU countries? And I mean, I will come to the UK implications with Leonie, but as far as EU countries, how much difference do you think this is going to make?
If all the effects of the new legislation effectively translate into practice, it's going to make a very big difference, because nowadays products and services are far from being accessible for visually impaired people. In practice, there will be delays. I don't expect there to be a huge change from 28 June. First of all, many businesses we know are still in the early stages of preparing for the European Accessibility Act and will not be ready by the end of June. And the European Accessibility Act relies on supporting standards at European level to confirm that the accessibility requirements are met. And these standards will not be equally available across the EU and depending on sectors.
Let me bring in Leonie Watson. Now, I think it's a fair bet that we wouldn't have asked you on if this had no relevance to people in this country. So just explain how it could affect us.
So the sad news is that it won't have a direct impact on blind and partially sighted people in the UK, unless you happen to be buying a product from within a European Union country. The silver lining, as you described it earlier, is that I think we can be reasonably sure that a lot of organisations who are selling products and services within the European Union won't want to treat the UK as an entirely separate market, because if you have to maintain two different versions of your product or two different versions of your website, that adds overhead and expense. So what I'm personally hoping, and I'm sure many others are, is that we'll see a ripple effect come down out of this legislation.
So you mean that if they're going to make some things more accessible than they were, there'd be no point in having two versions of it, would there?
Certainly not, unless for reasons they're maintaining two versions already.
I mean, give me an example of the kind of thing we might be talking about here.
Well, Antoine mentioned audiovisual streaming services, Netflix, any number of other platforms that we use for watching streaming TV, there's a good chance that the changes they're making in order to make sure their platforms conform to this legislation within France, Germany, other EU countries, it'll be the same service that we get here in the UK. So any improvements in accessibility they're making for one audience, there's a fairly good chance, I imagine, we'll see that kind of ripple out to the UK audiences too.
Just staying with you for a moment, Leonie, I mean, we've been hearing a lot lately, especially this last week, from our government about what it's describing as a realignment with Europe without actually rejoining the EU. What do you think is the likelihood of the government implementing something like this in the UK?
I honestly don't know what the likelihood is, but I very much hope that they will. There was a European directive several years ago now that related specifically to the public sector. And even though that was enacted after the Brexit vote went through, although before the actual hard decisions and the deadlines passed, we do have that now part of UK legislation. So part of me remains somewhere optimistic, hopeful that we will at some point adopt this or something remarkably similar.
The problem here is actually, and perhaps I can put this to Antoine and then to you, the problem here is actually who brings the cases where companies are not actually obeying the law because it's too expensive for individuals, and organisations don't seem that willing to take up the baton, do they?
I would say it's for civil organizations, civil society organizations to act as watchdogs and bring cases to the attention of governments. So there is a role for organizations such as the European Blind Unions, its national members and other umbrella organizations at EU level to see to it that EU rules are being respected, and they will be keen to actually flag misapplications of EU law.
Just staying with you for a moment, I'd like to ask you about some pretty down-to-earth things. Certainly, we've talked a lot on this programme about the difficulties people have, for example, in paying for goods now with sort of flat screens, and also a lot of just ordinary household machines like dishwashers and washing machines have got this sort of buttons which are inaccessible, becoming inaccessible. Do you think this will have an effect on those?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a very good point. Actually, something ABU is looking at very carefully. The European Accessibility Act addresses payment terminals. It does not, unfortunately, address the accessibility of household appliances. When it comes to payment terminals, manufacturers will have to adapt their products to make sure that even if they use flat screens, touch screens, there will have to be an alternative for blind people. And we will be campaigning hardly for the legislation to also address the gaps in EU legislation, namely household appliances, but also public urban transport and other things. But the Accessibility Act will make a huge difference for many products.
Right. I just wonder how long it'll take. Leonie, can I put the same thing to you? Would you see this having an effect? Presumably some of this equipment is made not in the UK, but in EU countries.
Yes, again, like Antoine said, I think the most likely area we'll see improvements will be in payment terminals and other self-service kiosks. Sadly, not the fronts of our washing machines and microwaves and such. It is worth mentioning, though, that the EAA has a 5-year grace period built into it. That's on top of the 5 years warning people have already had since the directive was actually enacted back in 2019. So, we're unlikely, especially with the hardware production side of things, I think, to see radical changes very quickly.
Well, Leonie Watson, thanks for coming on and cheering us all up. And Antoine Phobe, thank you too. Thank you. Now, something which is also all about access, audio description, the process of putting into words aspects of life with a large visual content. TV, film, stage plays, stately homes. It's becoming increasingly prevalent, but how many of us knew there was an Audio Description Association and that it wants more blind and partially sighted members to join to help shape the future of audio description? Yusuf Osman is one of the association's trustees. So Yusuf, what does the association do?
So the Audio Description Association has been around for about 25 years. I only joined about a year and a half ago because, like a lot of people, I hadn't heard of it either. It was set up to improve the standards of audio description. So its membership has always been audio describers, companies that produce audio description, and blind and VI individual members. We want to increase the number of blind and VI individual members because the best way of improving the standards is by hearing what those who use audio description think about audio description. And this year we've launched a new group specifically for blind and VI people to talk about their experiences of audio description. And one of the things that audio describers have told me over the last 15 years, I'd say, since I started going to audio described theatre a lot, is they don't get feedback. And there might be many reasons for that, some of which are to do with not providing people with a method to give that feedback. But also, I think there are concerns amongst us, the user, that if we say we didn't like this or this didn't do what we needed it to do, it might get taken away. But actually, audio describers want that feedback, and this user group is exactly the way we hope people will be able to give it.
And I think there's an offer to encourage more people to join, more visually impaired people to join. Can you tell us about that? Is it still open?
It is still open. Yeah, we still have several dozen memberships left. We had a generous donation to have up to 100 blind or VI people join for free. Usually the annual individual membership for a blind or VI individual is £10, but for this year it's free for those 100 people. If people are interested in joining, go to the website, which is audiodescription.co.uk/join-ADA. And if you have any difficulties, contact Trish, who is our wonderful membership secretary, on membership@audiodescription.co.uk.
Just one other thing, Yusuf. I mean, just speaking personally, are there aspects of audio description that you'd like to see improved?
Yes. Physical descriptions. There seems to be a tendency now to avoid describing hair colour, body shape, body size, whether somebody has a visible disability. Now, I've been blind since birth, and my family come from Cyprus, and I never quite knew where I fitted in terms of skin colour. Am I brown? Am I white? And I'm sure there are other blind people who don't know these things because they've never seen them. So if somebody doesn't tell us these things, at best we don't know about it and we don't think about it, and at worst we go around thinking that people are something when they're something else. The other big thing for me at the moment is pre-recorded audio description and the potential for AI to get into audio description. If you go to some of the big theatres up in London, Hamilton's a good example of this. You can go to any showing of Hamilton you want to, and you can listen to the pre-recorded audio description, which is great in one way because you can go to any performance. But in another way, you're not actually getting an audio description of the performance that's happening in front of you, because theatre changes, doesn't it, from day to day?
Yeah, I'm sure there are lots of other examples, and actually we'd like to hear about them from listeners. Yusuf Osman, thank you very much indeed. Now, ever since our interviews with the CEOs of the RNIB and Guide Dogs about their strategies for the future, we've had a steady stream of emails in response to various things raised in them. As promised, here's a sample. Retired blind rehabilitation officer Alan Maybert was dissatisfied with RNIB CEO Matt Stringer's answers to some of my questions.
His responses to the questions put to him were an attempt to justify and convince us that during his 6 years he has made the charity more fit for purpose. If his goal was to have no blind people in senior management posts, make blind employees with many good years' service redundant, and make us think of contacting the RNIB only as a last resort rather than in the first instance, the CEO and trustees have, regretfully, achieved their purpose and legacy. We all know there are blind people eminently qualified with relevant professional experience to lead major blind charities. Could it be that the recruitment agencies involved with filling these key roles simply choose to look the other way because they lack the insights to know what is required in order to facilitate and implement policies that can make a positive impact on the lives of blind people?
And this more sympathetic to the RNIB, but only just.
While I feel sorry for the travails that the RNIB, like many other charities, are going through, I was unconvinced by some of the interviewees' answers. As we all know, the unemployment level among visually impaired people is shocking, and that while the nature of jobs being undertaken by those in work has changed over the years, the actual percentage of people in work hasn't changed at all. Mr. Stringer, in my view, offered no credible answer in relation to the 16 members of staff who were made compulsorily redundant. It would be interesting to know what steps were taken to find alternative jobs within RNIB. What help has been offered to help the 16 find alternative employment? And what the success rate is? While Mr. Stringer is entitled to make his life choices in the same way as the rest of us, I think it gives a bad, or at least an unfortunate impression if he leaves, just when the reforms he has championed are coming into effect.
Those views from visually impaired former judge, His Honour John Lafferty. Meanwhile, Hazel Dudley, who's totally blind and has had mixed experiences with guide dogs, is one of those who feels that as a result of new attitudes, the bar for being given a dog has been raised and that it's now more a question of fitting the person to the dog rather than the dog to the blind person.
In 2021, I was informed that the trainer could not recommend me to be put on the waiting list for a new dog, as I did not need one. Apparently, new rules said that each guide dog owner has to walk for at least 40 minutes for 5 days a week with the dog on a harness. When I was young, I understood that if a dog could entice you out of your four walls, and indeed assist in doing so, then you could have one. But apparently not nowadays. The partnership numbers have decreased. Well, I rest my case.
Paul Nichols picked up on the CEO's answer to my question about the impression that there was a reluctance to train totally blind people. He said one of their academy trainees had said he hoped he'd have the chance to do this before his training ended.
That in itself is quite an amazing statement. Perhaps if guide dogs actually prioritise totally blind users, this could easily be arranged. My wife was on the waiting list for a replacement dog for over 2 years before she trained with her new dog in January. I start training with a new dog next week, and by the time I qualify, it will be 2 years since my last dog left me. We're both totally blind, would be willing to travel anywhere for training, and happy to be trained by a keen apprentice. What's their problem? It's far easier for them to train partially sighted people, especially where they have dogs that need support.
But Simon Morris, a largely satisfied guide dog owner of 27 years, introduces a rather different element to the debate.
I know not everyone's experience has been the same. I do, however, find it of concern the level to which discussions, especially from service users, are often framed with a sense of entitlement and expectation of services, without always acknowledging the pressures and limits charities face. Guide dogs offering you a dog is not a right. Having to wait a long time is frustrating, but getting it right is more important than having to wait. While we shouldn't feel that we must always be grateful, I do believe we have a shared responsibility to partner with the charities that support us and to give back where we can. It's important to understand that charities often step in where public services fall short, and they're not immune to financial pressures. Criticism without support can be counterproductive. Instead, I hope we can all reflect on how to contribute, whether through fundraising, volunteering, or simply offering understanding.
Well, that's all we have time for today, but I should say we're getting exceptionally large responses at the moment, about which we're delighted. We read them all, and because you haven't heard your contribution yet, that doesn't mean it's not valued, and you may hear it soon. Keep your comments and questions coming. Email in touch at bbc.co.uk. Leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338. From me, Peter White, and producer Beth Hemmings, goodbye.